During the dark era of slavery, enslaved Africans were given rations of food that were often poor in quality and insufficient to sustain them. However, they were able to use their creativity and resourcefulness to transform these meager ingredients into delicious and nourishing meals. The ingenuity of the enslaved people led to the creation of what is known today as soul food. From the toils of slavery to the cherished recipes that grace our modern kitchens, we'll be exploring how today's soul food was passed down from slavery. So join us as we dive deep into the origins of soul food and the people who created it, including the ingredients and dishes that contribute to its uniqueness. Soul food is a treasured part of American culture that is deeply rooted in African American history and tradition. Many of its dishes are associated with special occasions like Sunday dinners, family gatherings, or other celebrations. In fact, Soul Food Sundays have evolved into a cherished tradition within the African American families. It's a special time when they come together after church on Sunday to enjoy the delectable flavors of soul food. The essence of these Sunday meals is to nurture bonds that keep the families close. While families might have their differences, the act of cooking has woven unbreakable bonds which have fortified the strength of generations over time. Soul food recipes are often passed down through the generations as it keeps a powerful connection to the past and honors those who came before. The recipes are flavorful and comforting, with a focus on using quality ingredients and simple preparation methods. Dishes like fried chicken, yams, macaroni and cheese, and collard greens are staples of soul food cuisine. It's important to know that while all soul food is Southern food, not all Southern food is soul food. These two culinary genres have several differences despite their many similarities. Soul food refers to dishes created and popularized by African Americans, especially in the southern United States, while Southern food is a general term that encompasses all the food traditions of the American South. Soul food frequently uses simple and affordable ingredients, in contrast to Southern food, which may incorporate more elaborate and higher quality ingredients. Soul food also boasts a robust connection with African American culture, history, and tradition, which further distinguishes it from the broader scope of Southern cuisine. When it comes to the origin of soul food, it can be traced back to Africa, which is the ancestral origin of many enslaved Africans who were brought to the Americas. Similarly, it is deeply entwined with the experience of slavery and the resourcefulness of enslaved people. Many staples of soul food in America, including rice and several other crops, have their origins rooted in Africa. Among the crops that embody the essence of soul food in America, you'll find okra, sorghum, black-eyed peas, watermelon, and so much more. These plants were transported to the Americas during the era of the slave trade, and they subsequently established themselves as staples within the diets of both enslaved Africans and their descendants. Africans who were brought to the United States during the transatlantic slave trade were often separated from their families and communities. They were forced then to work on plantations alongside other enslaved people who spoke different languages and had different cultural backgrounds. The plantation owners believed that this would make it more difficult for the enslaved people to communicate and organize a rebellion. However, the slaves were able to take advantage of the situation after they were given low-quality food rations, which were usually leftovers consisting of mainly starch and lesser-quality parts of animals to eat. Their white plantation owners reserved the more desirable cuts of meat for themselves, while the black people on the plantation were left with offals. These offals were part of animals that many white people didn't want to eat, like pigskin, intestines, organ, and fat. This happened because in the southern United States, there were lots of pigs that were easy to raise, so both white and black people often ate them as a common source of food during that era. Even though enslaved Africans on plantations had only a few basic and not-so-great ingredients, they were incredibly resourceful and inventive in the kitchen. They combined their cooking skills and techniques to transform their modest supplies into delicious meals that provided sustenance. They achieved this by using what they had, like wild animals they hunted, crabs they raised, veggies from their garden, grains, and animal products like bacon, fat, and hog jowls. It's also worth noting that culinary traditions of soul food were influenced by the cuisines of white Americans, for whom some African Americans worked as cooks. In the kitchens of wealthy white families, African American cooks learned French and English cooking techniques, which shaped the development of soul food. They blended these influences into their cooking, creating a cuisine that was distinctly African American, yet also shaped by the cultures of the people they worked for. One of the most notable African American chefs who helped shape soul food was James Hemings. Hemings was born into slavery in 1765, and from a young age, he worked in the kitchen of Thomas Jefferson's Monticello estate. He was trained in classical French cooking and eventually became a skilled chef. Hemings used his knowledge of French cooking techniques to create dishes that incorporated African and Southern flavors, which helped shape the foundation of soul food cuisine. Another factor that contributed to soul food was the great migration of African Americans from the rural South to urban areas in the North and West during the 19th century. This had a profound impact on the spread of soul food culture across the United States. As African Americans moved to cities like Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles, they brought their food traditions with them. They established restaurants, catering businesses, and food stands that featured dishes like fried chicken, collard greens, and hush puppies. These businesses helped to shape the development of African American cuisine and provided a place for community members to gather and socialize. Many remarkable African American businesses equally played a key role in shaping the evolution of soul food. One of the most significant of them all was Sylvia Woods' restaurant, Sylvia's, in Harlem. It was established in 1962 alongside her husband, Herbert Woods, and became an iconic establishment in the world of soul food. Sylvia's restaurant was a cherished gathering spot for numerous African American luminaries. It also held great significance in the documentation of African American culture, as it was featured in numerous works of literature, television shows, and film. Sylvia Woods herself contributed to the spread of soul food by publishing several cookbooks during her lifetime, thereby introducing this cuisine to a wider audience. Perhaps this is why she is often called the Queen of Soul Food, a title well-deserved for her influential role in popularizing and preserving the rich culinary heritage of soul food. Another influential figure in the world of soul food was Edna Lewis, a trailblazing culinary icon who brought Southern cuisine to the forefront of American culture. Born in 1916, Lewis began her culinary career in New York City, where she worked as a caterer and private chef for prominent New Yorkers. She went on to become one of the most influential figures in American cuisine, who published several cookbooks that popularized the cuisine. Lewis's cookbooks showcased traditional African American dishes as well as her own innovations. She also emphasized the use of fresh, high-quality ingredients and simple but effective cooking techniques. Her works helped to bring the cuisine of soul food to a wider audience and also helped to elevate its status in the culinary world. Other notable African American businesses that contributed to the development of soul food include Dookie Chase's restaurant in New Orleans, founded by Dookie and Emily Chase in New Orleans' Trim neighborhood. These restaurants and others like them provided a space for African Americans to gather and enjoy traditional dishes. Over time, the restaurant became well known for its delicious food and welcoming atmosphere. As its popularity grew, Dookie Chase became a destination for civil rights leaders and cultural figures. It was a place where they could come together and discuss the important issues of the day in a safe and welcoming space. The Black Power movement of the 1960s was a turning point in the history of soul food. The movement's focus on Black pride and empowerment helped to give soul food a name and a sense of cultural importance. Black Power leaders like Stokely Carmichael and H. Rap Brown encouraged African Americans to embrace their culture and traditions, and soul food was seen as a key part of that cultural identity. During this period, the Black Power movement was growing and African Americans were increasingly asserting their cultural pride and identity. The term soul food is also closely linked with the evolution of soul music. Both soul food and soul music were born out of the rich traditions of African American culture. Soul music originated in the 1950s and 1960s as African Americans combined elements of gospel music, including rhythm and blues, to create a new and unique sound. Just as soul music was a hybrid of religious and secular styles, so too was soul food, a combination of culinary traditions from Africa, Europe, and the Americas. The term soul in both music and food evokes a sense of depth and richness of the African American experience. Soul food is used to celebrate and embrace the food traditions of the past, and therefore, soul food symbolizes the rich history and culture of the African American experience and is a key part of our cultural identity. Today, soul food is a cuisine that is deeply embedded in American culture. From the South to the North, from coast to coast, you'll find restaurants serving dishes like fried chicken, collard greens, macaroni and cheese, cornbread, sweet potato pie, and many other delicious soul food cuisines. In addition to being found in restaurants, soul food is also enjoyed in homes and at celebrations across the country. Who would have thought that the dishes that were created out of necessity would later become a source of pride and a symbol of African American heritage? Now tell us, what's your soul food habits or your favorite soul food dish? Feel free to share them in the comment section below. We can't wait to hear from you.